All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. Going to be touching on the top showdown plays here for this Sunday night matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. To me, this is a somewhat straightforward slate, so I'm kind of excited to break it down. And to me, kind of the straightforward nature of it, and I just want to touch on this, and I'll get into the typical game breakdown that I would do, is that lineup path-wise, it does make sense to me where we would want to go. Right now, you want to be on CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott. Like, that is the easy starting point to want to be on those two. And then because we have some cheap pricing on the tight ends, whether you want to go Jake Ferguson or potentially Dallas Goedert in the captain spot, I am fine with that. To me, I'm going to go Ferguson because Dallas Goedert a little bit cheaper at that price tag, and then 2.3 left over. I'm fine just going and ending up on Quez Watkins if we could, but we can't. And so that's where it might not be as straightforward as I would like. The one pivot that you could make for this example build, why I feel the need to break it down for you guys, is that obviously we would have to pivot off of CeeDee Lamb. You could easily go AJ Brown or Smith, but then you'd just be paying up from Quez Watkins, and then you would be going with Michael Gallup. But let's kind of just touch on the lineup process for today's slate. Let's start with the Eagles, because to me, the Eagles are going to be the more difficult of the two teams to predict as to what is going to occur. I mentioned that I do like Dallas Goedert. I feel like he is the most mispriced player on the slate, and that is simply because he is coming back from injury. This game against Dallas is supposed to be a game that's going to be higher scoring. It's one of the highest scoring games on the whole day today. I mean, it has a 51.5 for the over and under, and looking at the point spread, it's a 3.5 point spread. So this is supposed to be an appealing game. So with that, there's going to be high scores. We know Dallas Goedert most likely not going to be limited at all, which is great. You know, it's a forearm injury. I don't think we're worried about his conditioning or really any setbacks there. So that should be a good thing. And so with that, we saw him well on his way to having a good game against Dallas. You give him about 10% more of the snaps there, and he probably does have a little bit of a better game, a little bit of a touchdown dependent play. But all in all, his cheap price tag does make me want to play him, whether it's in the flex or in the captain spot. I am fine with that. Let's talk about the value real quick. So Quez Watkins, in the games that he started and finished, has played in 60% in all those. The issue with that is that it's been 15, week 5, and week 1. If he was a little bit cheaper, I think we could be happy to end up on him taking the 1 or 2 points that he would give us, maybe the upside for a long completion. But all in all, maybe a little bit too thin. I will say, though, because he is back, Zacchaeus, probably not someone we're looking at all. And then Julio Jones, probably not someone we're looking at as well. Could Julio play 10% of the snaps and catch like a end zone target? Sure, but that is a very slim likelihood. Obviously, they're going to be much favored to do the tush push rather than a jump ball to Julio Jones. I will say, like, Boston Scott maybe adds a touchdown upside. Again, if he is cheaper, like $200, we could consider him. Does feel a little bit priced up. And then let's just talk about the pay ups. So yeah, Jalen Hurts, we probably just are paying up for. I think it's clear cut why we want to. I will say tush push touchdowns, I get that it's by design and whatnot, but the fact that they keep getting plays to the 2 or 1 yard line to make them run the tush push is pretty darn crazy. Like, eventually that is not going to happen. It's at 1, 2, 2, and what? So 6 rushing touchdowns over the past 4 games, like, that is due to regress at some point. You would think. I mean, the plays that keep occurring, just what's crazy, like a DPI or a player getting marked down on the 1 on a deep pass. Just weird stuff. All in all, though, I still think he's going to be a great play. He's still going to rush the ball a decent amount. Even if you take away the rushing touchdown and add in maybe a pass, fine taking those points. From there, it does feel like we kind of have to choose between AJ Brown or Smith. Now, I will say, Smith's production really spiked up when Dallas Goedert. Okay, we know that. But prior to that, he was very much a hit or miss target on the season. He has been a little bit more consistent as a fantasy producer. I will say the price difference between Brown and Smith does make me kind of want to end up on Smith a little bit more, because you look at AJ Brown didn't have insanely dominant game against Dallas, whereas Smith had similar production. Now, it does seem to be the case where we are choosing between 2 out of the 3 pass catchers, that being AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, or Dallas Goedert. I, at this point, like taking probably a little bit of an ownership edge going with Smith and Goedert. From there, I don't know if I want to be on Swift. Just with he's a touchdown dependent play. That's pretty much it. With Hurts getting as many touchdowns as he's getting, and with Boston Scott seemingly getting a little bit of involvement down in the red zone, goal line wise, and even Kenneth Gainwell still being there as well, that does really limit the upside for Swift. Like, he really needs to have his production in the past, and I don't know if we can bank on that. So he does seem to be a stay away, as does Kenneth Gainwell. Jake Elliott, I don't know. I can't really get there in a game that's supposed to be high scoring. So let's go ahead and get into Dallas. Dallas is going to be a little bit more appealing, I'll say, just given the pricing. And really given the matchup. So looking at it, I do think CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott are going to be two players that we really want to try to go out of our way to pay up for. CeeDee Lamb has been crushing it. The issue with CeeDee Lamb in a few games has literally been the fact that they've been blowing out teams. Seattle, they blew out. Washington, they blew out. Carolina, they blew out. Even the Giants, they blew out. So that has kind of capped his upside in a couple of those games, specifically Washington and Carolina. This game against Philly, again, it's supposed to be a high-scoring game, and this Philly defense is pretty bad. We have seen that. So all in all, I do think we want to be prioritizing CeeDee Lamb in our builds, but like I showed you guys, it's going to be more difficult to fit him into our build in an optimal way. And then Dak. Yeah, we just want to be playing Dak. He is, to me, probably going to be the MVP candidate, especially if he puts up another good game in this one. Heck, if he puts up another good game in prime time like this, guys, it's going to be tough to see him not be favorite after this, especially if they win up. Last game against Philly, 3 touchdowns and almost 400 passing yards. I mean, he's just been dominant. Again, kind of the issue, I guess, with him in a couple of those games was that they're blowing out the team too much, but all in all, Tony Pollard's not doing that much work to the point where Dak Prescott is still feet. So, like, we clearly want to end up on CeeDee Lamb. We clearly want to end up on Dak. But also, to me, it seems like we are choosing between Cooks or Ferguson. Now, I will say Cooks is kind of the George Kittle, okay, where if you are playing Cooks, I would say he's a much better play in the captain spot, hoping for that upside game. It's going to be there. Like, there's going to be some plays there for him, and he has looked pretty darn good over the past month. You know, he's kind of figured it out within this off. The issue is that he's typically not getting targeted that heavily. What you would be hoping for is a touchdown, and you'd be hoping for a big play touch. And it could happen. Like, he could put up similar production to CeeDee Lamb, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, like any of those guys, the 2 quarterbacks. I don't think anyone would be shocked if he had a big game. Although it's risk reward, chances are he's not going to pay off his price tag flex. And if you look at the target share, air yards and whatnot, Jake Ferguson has kind of been more reliable. And if you look at him in games that have stayed close, let's just look at the 2 most recent ones, Philly and then Seattle. You know, close enough. Those have been 2 big games. And I think that's simply because he's not being asked to block as much like you would against Washington, Carolina, or the Giants, where you are playing from the lead. So that is, to me, where I want to be on Jake Ferguson a little bit more, because I think the likelihood of him both having a good game and a great game is a little bit better than Cook. And then from there, I'm fine ending up on Gallup. He's probably the only one I feel decent about. Schumacher, maybe potentially, but he's too priced up, I would say, still. And even like Turpin, who they like, using him in unique ways, I feel like he's a little bit too priced up. And so here's the issue with today in a nutshell. If you want to go Ferguson in the captain spot, I'd be fine with it, but then you're ended up on Turpin or Schumacher. All in all, like, I don't hate that. But we look at the snap counts for that. We are banking on production from one of those two on like 30% of the snaps or 16%. All in all, I don't love doing that, but that is kind of the slate. And the reason I would do that is so I can still get to Hurt and still get to the Dallas Cowboy players that I wanted. All in all, I hate the fact of fading like Brown and Smith, but it does make sense to then be on Goddard. But that is going to be all for today's video, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the coverage. If you did, make sure to give a like and subscribe. Do appreciate that. Let's have a good Sunday night football slate. And as always, guys, let's keep cashing.